We bought La Marzocco in 1990. Well, give you the whole story. Maybe you've heard it. There's no rhyme or reason to how things are set up.
This is the storage garage underneath the Bakke Coffee Museum in Seattle. The museum is the brainchild of Kent Bakke, partner and former CEO at La Marzocco. The upstairs museum is right around the corner from La Marzocco headquarters and has a public-facing showroom attached to a workshop. I'm going to do a separate video on the upstairs public-facing museum. I've got a ton of footage from this trip. It was just too much to cram into one video. Tucked away underneath, there are hundreds of espresso machines from every era. The storage unit is overwhelming in a positive way. I've always seen espresso machines as works of art and believe they serve a visual and connective purpose that goes beyond their function. To me, they're the focal point of any cafe, which is why I've never been a huge fan of under-counter machines. I'm also fascinated by the life cycle of things and feel like each one of these machines has a story to tell. Every single one has lived a life of service, seen and heard so many things over the years, so to see hundreds of them in the same place had me really emotional. I can imagine a younger version of myself packing up all my belongings and moving to Seattle to intern for free in hopes of getting a job researching, documenting, rebuilding, and ultimately sharing these beautiful espresso machines with the world. Maybe that can be my retirement plan somehow. Kent is one of my favorite people to talk to in the specialty coffee industry. He has so much knowledge, and most of this video is him sharing stories about espresso machine history, including the story of how he and his partners brought La Marzocco to the US to supply Starbucks in the early 90s during their huge growth phase, effectively bringing cappuccino and latte culture to the US mass market. Huge thank you to Kent and Abby for showing us around. This was a real treat, one of the highlights of my year, and I hope you all enjoy the conversation and the stories.
Is that a coffee brewer? Or?
Yeah, this is a French machine. So you've got espresso groups on it, and then to be filter coffee. And I mean, it's I can't imagine how much that thing weighs. You brew it in here, and then you store it in here, I would guess. This one, old style, and then a lever group. So I don't know if the machine was built this way. Originally, the groups were designed that you could bolt them onto an existing machine. If you were making machines and you had to shut down during World War II, and then when you started back up, all you had was a bunch of parts from before that you might still make a vertical machine. But Gaggia came out with the lever group, I think around 48. You know, I mean, after the vertical machines, they started piston machines. And then, you know what a hydraulic machine is? Have you seen those? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that rapidly went to that. And then Faima started using an electric motor and pump.
That's
an
an
American
E61
pump,
machine.
E61. Oh, here's one. Well, the E61s, you can find them around. They're not that rare. They built a lot of them.
I think the E is for eclipse because in that year there was a total solar eclipse over Italy.
Okay.
But I don't.
And 61 is the year. Okay.
Because Faima had that whole, they were really into like the solar system thing with the Urania, the Marte, the Neptune.
I mean, they reproduced it too, called the Legend.
I had some drawings I sketched out. I wanted to do a E61 body with basically a GB5 or something inside. Because we had our first store and then we were opening our second store, and the second store is in a market. To open the store was basically cost of equipment because the people who did the market like handled all the build out and everything. And I was like, oh, it'd be sick if we had like a 2-group E61 and we bought another machine and we put them together. Amongst the chaos of opening a business, couldn't figure out how to make it happen. It's kind of the perfect machine to do it because the way the back is, you know, it's got this bubble back, but the front panel is kind of flat. So, you know, you can imagine if you're gonna fit a machine inside another machine, wouldn't be terribly hard if you knew how to do some metal work to find a way to like seal it up and make it look complete.
That would be a classic because, I mean, Faima was always an arch rival of La Marzocco. I mean, La Marzocco was tiny.
Like a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep that idea. Maybe we'll build one and surprise you. I don't know if you know, but Faima actually, it's an acronym. It's not a name.
Oh, really?
It's,
no, I didn't know that.
Fabbrica Apparecchi Elettromeccanica ed Affini, which means a factory of electromechanical appliances and accessories. They built the first Gaggia machines. Achille Gaggia owned a coffee bar, and so he wasn't like an engineer. I think he had engineers do stuff for him, but he didn't like have a factory. Or Faima, these guys were engineers and had a factory, so they knew how to build stuff. I mean, then Gaggia went off and built their own factory, and I don't know if that was part of the plan or rift or whatever. But anyway, Faima wasn't in the coffee machine business until Gaggia, and then I think they saw an opportunity. And my opinion is they were able to make a less expensive machine and make a lot of them. They grew really, really big, and then they had a lawsuit over the heat exchanger with Chimbley, and I don't know the details, but Chimbley won.
Oh, yes!
Now what?
OG Mistral.
Oh, right.
I can't remember where I went to that had a Mistral.
So there's two kinds of Mistrals. So there's these, which are built by Kees van der Westen off of La Marzocco machines. So they started life either as probably Lineas or GS or GS2. I don't actually know.
This looks like a GS.
I mean, it's definitely got that GS inspired body paneling, but then later on, La Marzocco put a Mistral inline that they manufactured as a production machine. So those weren't made by Kees van der Westen. So these are before that, and these are one-off.
I think it was the blue bottle in Oakland that was at the bank that also had the Espresso Tech.
That was not a Mistral either. That was a Mirage, which is also a Kees van der Westen. That's a heat exchanger machine that has the same, it looks the same. Have you seen the ones that have the little click group actuator? They don't have the AV panel. They have just like it's the coolest looking thing ever. There were some old videos of Schomer had one in a lab at one point. It had these little, and I think the big 5 group at Belmont Stumptown has that same very tactile. Is this the first automated milk steamer ever?
Yeah, that's like a prototype version for Starbucks, I think. We also have another one. We have a Linea that is just a milk steamer. There's no group heads.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's just got 2 steam pressure gauges. There's no brew buttons or anything.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a couple of these upstairs, but when you pull this down, the portafilter in the group moved down. It moves the cylinder instead of the piston.
Oh, so the piston's static and then the whole chamber moves?
I didn't realize that until yesterday. I was looking at it, showing somebody, and it's like, oh, the piston stays thing. I don't know if it was a patent thing or what. You probably never heard of this one. This is called the Armando. This is made in the U.S.
No, I've never heard of that.
I think it was the early 90s he was doing that. He had a company that he built really high-end turntables, back when the records were popular, like 10 grand for a turntable in the 90s. He got interested in coffee and built a company in this, and I don't really know what happened to it. Yeah, so the GS came out about 1970 to 1971. And so we started bringing them, our first machines is 78, 79. And then the GS2 came out, I think, in about 82. Howard Schultz was working for Starbucks, and he went to Italy and got the vision for coffee bar. And he came back and talked the owners of Starbucks to set up a separate business called Il Giornale. They were using Faima, but they wanted to put to-go cups under it. And back then there was only like a 10 or maybe a 12-ounce cup. So we figured out with the GS2 that if we took just some square tube steel.
Oh, you boosted it up. Oh, so that's just a spacer.
Yeah, we did that so you could actually put a cup, make it into the to-go cup. And we had bigger steam boilers. We'd take these valves and bore them out and put bigger copper feed tubes so they had more volume of steam, not just pressure, but volume. Like a single boiler machine, I mean, if you keep turning up the heat for more steam, you also affect the temperature of the coffee. We didn't have to worry about that. So that's how we got our foot in the door with Starbucks. This is probably a Seattle machine.
When you say Seattle machine, do you mean it was used here or built here?
We bought La Marzocco in 1990. Well, give you the whole story, maybe you've heard it. So, we started importing in 78, 79, and there were actually already a few La Marzoccos in town. And then we started working with Starbucks in the late 80s, and they were slow as they were starting to, so they started with Il Giornale, and then they wanted to sell the company. So Howard Schultz put together a group of investors, and they bought it in like 89 or 90 or something like that. And then they merged the two identities. All the Il Giornale stores became Starbucks. Up to that point, Starbucks was basically a wholesale roaster. They had 4 retail locations, but they weren't building. They were just pretty much bean stores. So we're going along, and they're starting to, open up some stores and stuff. And then we had a meeting with them in 93, and they said, up to this point, they'd only maybe like 50, maybe 75 stores a year. And in 93, they said, next year, 94, we're going to open 350 stores. And so we go, okay. So we went back to La Marzocco and we said, we need a bunch more machines next year. And they go, no, we're not interested. But why not? So we said, okay, well, can we manufacture a machine under a license in the US? And they said, okay, but you have to buy the company. Because at that point, they were on the second generation, but there was no third generation. And in 94, we had, a 15-year history with them. So I put together a group, and we bought 90% of the company in 1994, and at the same time opened up a facility here in Seattle to assemble 3 and 4 group Lineas for Starbucks. So they kept building machines in Italy for the rest of the market, and then we built machines in Seattle for 10 years, from 94 to 2004, just for Starbucks. And then they started completely going to automated equipment. So.
And are there any designations that would denote that one is a Seattle-built machine versus Italy?
Well, it either has to be a 3 or 4 group, first of all.
Okay.
Because we didn't build anything. And then it would, on the tag, it'll say B for Ballard. This part of town is called Ballard. So B and then the serial number.
Got it. So you've said that a couple times. Is that a Ballard machine?
Yeah.
That's what that means. This is a Ballard machine, even though it's got like the Made in Italy stamp. The B is
right there.
B designates
that's
that.
the date too. I don't remember.
Oh, 99. Dude, you have a lot of work to do here, huh?
Oh, I know. My next project is to start organizing them down here and photographing them as I go. Obviously not alone, because you can't really move these by yourself.
Yeah.
But properly documenting them one by one, and I feel like it'll take at least a year.
Oh yeah, easy a year. Like a year would be incredible speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just mentally I have to give myself time frames.
Yeah, totally.
But at the moment we don't have great photos of a lot of them because they're just so jammed in here.
This is amazing.